We discussed it, how our life when we were younger, everything we did was about money. Everything's money. I'm going to go do that because I'm going to make money.
When you start working on yourself and you start really healing and developing your own self-awareness, and you will literally raise your own frequency to start being that person that people are drawn to, right? And you're emanating that energy outwards.
Edyta and Ian are the dynamic duo behind the WanderWell Tour, an initiative focused on holistic leadership, wellness programs, and raising awareness for men's mental health.
We can always make money. We're not sitting in a financial hole, we're fine. But to have the ability and the freedom to go out and do different events and know that I'm basically going to donate tens of thousands of dollars from these specific events we're going to do quarterly.
You're listening to the David F Haas Podcast. In this podcast, I sit down with Ian France and his wife, Edyta. These two are creating a life by design. They're traveling around all of Canada and eventually the U.S., spreading their message. They basically decided that they wanted to live a life with more freedom and spread their message at the same time. So it's a really interesting conversation. We dive deep into limitations and the things that hold us back. I really think you're going to enjoy this conversation with Ian and Edyta. Ian, I got you back in the podcast room.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. And this time you brought your wife.
Yes, I did. She's a better half. A lot smarter.
Yeah, she's easier on the eyes too. So.
Thank you very much.
Well, anyways, we talked about getting you back on the podcast because you talked about it when we were on the podcast a little bit about like this kind of grand plan that you guys had. Yeah. And so we started getting more into that. I'm like, hey, I'm sure people want to know this. And Edyta was just saying like, it's like kind of like life by design. And I was literally just saying that to a client today. I was like, she was talking about like liking picking up her kids from school, and she's like, I don't know if I can go back to work because I really like enjoy picking the kids up and all that. It's like, well, then you could just design a life that makes it so you can actually pick up your kids. And I think people get really restricted in like thinking they can only do this from this very limited perspective of like go get a 9-to-5 job and whatever. But I think what you guys are proving, which we'll get into, is that you can like kind of do whatever you want. Yeah. And so why don't you give me an overview of like what the overall plan is, like how did this whole thing come about? So kind of introduce it to people and then go from there.
We're calling it the WanderWell Tour.
Okay.
I mean, I'm doing my leadership, and she's doing pop-up weddings and also her wellness programs and platform. Mm-hmm. We've just merged them all, and we're just of the opinion that we don't need to stay in one spot. We can work. We're very fortunate. We know that we're fortunate in regards to the fact that we can work remotely. Yeah. We have a lot of our systems, we're systemized and automated on a lot of our platforms, which makes life a lot easier. And all we need to do is grab Elon Musk's internet and we can work from anywhere that we want. And, we want to just raise awareness on men's mental health in general, but I have a real spot for men's mental health for youth and adults. And basically, instead of us staying in one spot and hoping we can connect with people across Canada and the United States, we're going to bring it to them. Yeah. And literally the set for sale sign went on the house today, brother.
No way.
Yeah. So, we connected and we've scooped ourselves a 41-foot fifth wheel. Mm-hmm. It's a house on wheels. We're not going to live in a country. It's not a weekender. That's right. For sure. And I think it's just going to strengthen our message, partnering up with chambers and partnering up with BIAs and different festivals and things like that. I mean, she's already...
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of pride festivals out west that are already looking into having us come out and do pop-up weddings at the festivals. So that would be a great experience there. Yeah.
Right. And so Edyta, your background is you do weddings, like you officiate weddings. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of my hats. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
So I'm the love doula, the wedding officiant. So that was something that I've been wanting to do for years and years. I think that there was always a bit of a lack of this beautiful spirituality to be brought into ceremony for weddings. So that's what I'm bringing in, right?
Yeah, I love that.
But my other hat is wellness and holistic wellness. So I became a integrative naturotherapist. I've been into fitness and nutrition for probably 15, 16 years now, like pretty steady. So those are my two hats.
Yeah. And so how do you guys see that? Like, cause like when I'm hearing you say that, like, Ian, you have your thing with men's mental health. Edyta, you have the two hats that I'm kind of seeing. So how are you bringing that all together? Because it seems like a lot of moving parts, kind of.
It is, but it's really no different than every other double income family that
Sure.
the wife's working one job and the husband's working another job.
Yeah.
We just happen to be able to blend the holistic side into my leadership programs.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
So that's a real thing, and then tying in the men's mental health, it's just a natural thing for me to do, because we had You Matter going, and it was a men's meeting group, but what we found was it was too difficult to get men to come to a room and admit and open up. So what we've done is we just revamped that, and now it's a place where people can go for resources and they can go for help. And as we go across the country, we're partnering up with smaller charities in that group that specialize in men's mental health.
Okay.
And we're going to work with them and try to raise a little bit of funds for them. But really, how it works, I mean, we've been working remotely from the house together for a few years now.
Right.
You know, ironically, the very injury that I got on the Windsor Police Department, she was a trauma firefighter.
Okay.
So she's just transitioned in the past year with the exact same injury, which is just ironic, decades apart.
Right.
And here we are. So having the freedom and having the mindset that we're not trees and we're not stuck in one place, it's a blessing. You know, we recognize how fortunate we are to not have to go to a location to work.
Yeah, I think the world has definitely shifted. It's like you can create whatever life you want to create these days. It's like I think what people are starting to like lean into and recognize more. It's like, you know, it's like you can have whatever life you want. And so like, what was the drawing to you guys, like being like, hey, like I want to travel and see the world? Was that what part of the big draw, or you didn't want to be so like rooted and grounded in one space anymore?
Well, yeah, I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I've ever been to Colorado, I've been wanting to go to Colorado since I was 13 years old when I read about it in a novel. I've never been out west, so that was the only out west that I've ever been to, and that was about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. And I've always loved the mountains, forest. I've always been a backwoods camper. You know, I've got a short stint in the military, in infantry, so that's everything forest. You know, living outside for countless days, weeks at a time, right?
Yeah, right.
So absolutely love it, that connection with nature, and that's part of the spirituality that we have, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's more of a calling.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's similar to like what we basically tapped into at Lungo Vito. There was that just like people are, everyone's kind of like so connected to devices, and you start to feel that if you bring some awareness to it, you start to feel that weight of like distraction essentially, is what I've been tuning into for myself recently. And that's what we were tuning into like with Lungo Vita, was like people need to like unplug from all that. And so I'm guessing that's kind of like some of that calling that you're talking about, is like to unplug from all the noise a little bit.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, that was the first time we went to Colorado, and then we were just there when? November? October of last year. And even our injuries, our aches and pains, they were gone. It's a different, we've got a lot of heavy metals in this area. We've got a lot of different, it's just a different environment that we have here. And in the times that we're out in nature, I mean, we feel healthier. Our minds are the clarity is even greater than it is here. And, if we have the ability to wake up and do work at an ocean or at a mountain or in a forest, instead of staying at home, a house, I want to make that effort and try that.
Yeah.
Go.
And is it a business venture, or is it like more of like you're kind of funding it with you guys selling your house, selling all your stuff? You bought this trailer, so are you looking to like turn this into like a tour that kind of begins to create like a business, as well, or is it more so I don't know?
No, it's absolutely a tour.
Business.
We're reaching. It's a business, business focus, but with the benefits that we get to live in beautiful locations and work from beautiful locations. But the main focus and the purpose of this, we have intention to go out and make a difference with boots on the ground and be in people's faces.
Yeah.
To have that ability, I think is incredible, and we are already in communication. National, fuel, groceries, regional. We're looking at sponsorships to partner up with us, and we're not just looking for people to get us started. We want people that are going to stay with us so that we can actually fulfill and attain our goals.
I love that.
And reach our goals. There's a huge difference, and that's really the gist of it, where it is a business, but it's very relaxed, where people can't wrap their brain around it sometimes of what we're about to do.
Yeah, and that's where I'm kind of getting at, is like of just kind of hearing it, because like my business mind goes to, how are you guys going to make this work, and how are you going to spread the message and do all this stuff. But I think you're coming up from this place of like, hey, this is our intention to go out and spread the word, and the rest will kind of work itself out. Yes, you have plans and all of that stuff, but it's seeming like it's coming from like a very surrendered place is what I'm picking up on. Why don't we get into like a little bit of like the spiritual aspects and the work that you guys are kind of doing here, right? Because I think that's what our podcast listeners are going to want to know. It's like, you guys are both into spirituality, and you and I talked about on our podcast about getting sober and the clarity that comes from that, and so. But Edyta, I don't know too much about you, so why don't you kind of give me a little bit of like what your big takeaways are from respect to like leaning into like this spiritual side of yourself.
Oh, well, I mean, I think first of all, my spiritual journey started when I was about 13 years old. And I started reading into Native American authors. So that really, really sparked my interest. And that's when I left, the church kind of, and just over the years, things, you read more, you research more, and things like that. And, you discover people like, Dispenza, right? Joe Dispenza, who's phenomenal at the, manifesting thought, right? And it's really, everything that we're doing is really about just manifestation. We really go by the ideology of putting all of your focus into what drives the most passion, right? Because if you do, on any given day, if you do what it makes you most passionate that day, it will only bring good things, because that's only positive, right? So not focusing on any negativity as much as possible, but focusing on positive, on passion, more opportunities come your way. When we got together, I mean, Ian always had his own spectacular energy. I had my own spectacular energy, I think, or at least that's what I was told. I was also told that there's no way that you're ever going to find someone that can match your spirit. And I did. But it seemed as though when we met, his energy and my energy, it wasn't like 2 times, it was exponential, right? We drive each other, we motivate each other, we push each other to learn more and, research more and develop our own spirits, He encourages me, I encourage him. And we have just found, because of that passion and the positivity and that spirit, opportunities just drop.
And it's just the right people around. It's funny you mentioned manifestation. We have 2 whiteboards in my office that we filled out over 2 years ago.
2 years ago when we first
just filled out this whiteboard, like a vision board on ideas and concepts and everything that we wanted to do. And, life goes on, you start going down a path, you start looking at certain things, and you don't necessarily check on that board maybe as much as you should.
It was in the closet for a little while.
Well, we suddenly went and, it was up there, and we look at it. I was looking at it one day, and like 85% of everything that we have put up there is intertwined amongst what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people may look at it and they're like, because everybody has one job, one task, one path, and that's what they stick with. And that's fine. But it's hard for some people to juggle multiple projects or even envision juggling multiple projects, when really all we are is we're just a husband and wife each doing our job, and they just happen to cross over holistically. And through consciousness, awareness, and that. So
I think a thing that you touched on there is something I've been picking up on recently, which is that manifestation and like a vision board. And like as far as my spiritual growth goes, I'm not like a big tool guy. Like I don't like sound bowls and crystals and all of that stuff. I mean, not that I shouldn't say I don't like them, but it's just not my thing, right? And I'm sure there's benefits to all that stuff. Mine has always been about like, I don't want to look to add, I want to look to subtract, right? But the one thing I will say is that a vision board or even just a list of what you want out of life it might be one of the easiest things that you can do to basically bring in everything that you've ever wanted into your life. And this became aware to me because I had this storage room in my basement and I was clearing it out, and I have this like memento box and I was like clearing it out. There's like pictures of old girlfriends and stuff. I'm like, I gotta get rid of this shit, right? And so, but as I was going through it, I came across this list that I had written, you know, maybe when I was like 21, of like everything that I wanted out of life, right? And so every single one of those things on that list, besides one, had come true already. And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, I didn't do anything to achieve this. So people say you got to have a list, but you also have to take action towards that list. And I agree that is true, but the list is what incites the action, right? And without you even having to think like, you know, I was a big goal guy for a long time, and I still like keep myself on track, but it's really just the intention, right, is all that is required. And by putting a vision board out there or writing a list of everything that you want out of your life, you're setting that intention. And once you set that intention, everything that you need to fulfill that intention, you will be pulled by that intention towards the end of that thing. And I don't think, you know, I don't think that gets as much credit as it deserves, because I think a lot of like spiritual teachers and have kind of like downplayed like the movie The Secret. You know, it's like you just have to like do this vision board and it all comes into your life. And a lot of people say, well, you got to have action, you got to this, and but it's actually you don't. You know, and you guys are kind of proof of that as well. You had this board and you kind of put it away, and then all of a sudden you look and you're like, holy shit, everything that we ever wanted has happened. And so I think there's like huge power in just like making that list. And I think the other thing that people should do is when you're writing that list, like, it should be like unlimited. Like, because then even when I looked at my list from 20 years ago, I could see my limited thinking in that list. You know, like it was just like everything was so in what I thought was possible. And so when you get better at this intention setting, you can intend to do whatever you want. You know, Absolutely. Like you guys intend to live your life, travel the world, and make millions of dollars if you wanted to. Like there's no limitations, and I think a lot of people aren't kind of like seeing that. So I don't know, that's not even really a question, but I guess like maybe if you guys can just reflect on the spot here of like making that vision board, and then maybe like how some of the things just fell into place to like have this whole entire thing that you guys are doing unfold.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, it was a list. It wasn't pictures, right? So I basically did like basically what happens is, I mean, Ian goes on these wonderful like creative spells where he just, you know, basically throws everything out of his brain, right? And I have this uncanny ability to literally see what was in his brain. Right, like Tom Cruise on Minority Report.
Honestly,
that's amazing.
And I just put the pieces together like in the right way and coordinated, and so basically like he could do everything up to about 80%, and I fill in the last 20. I'll do everything 80% in the last 20 that I don't know how to do. Well, he fills that in as well, right? Because I mean, that's kind of what you need to do with a partner. But we do mirror each other that way. The one thing that I found about the manifestation is that you, especially with a vision board or with the intentions, you now have an awareness, right? It would be on your mind. You have an awareness of what you want, where you want to be. So as you go through life, as your days go on, as you recognize what your passion is any given moment, any given day, with that awareness, you're now seeing those opportunities. Whereas without a vision board, without an intention, you're not even aware of what it is your goal is or should be and where you should be going, right? So there's that importance, and that's how it naturally manifests, because you're just seeing the opportunities come your way.
Yeah, you have to, what you're talking about is like tuning your awareness into whatever it is that you want. So it's like the red car kind of thing, right? It's like, if you say, you know, how many red cars you notice on your way here, you say none. But if I said, on the way home, I want you to become aware of all the red cars, and you'll start seeing them everywhere, right? And so it's the same thing with opportunity or your dream or whatever. As soon as you tune your consciousness into it through the process of creating a list or a vision board or just setting the intention, for me, I have to write it out. You know, that's how it works for me. Then you've tuned your awareness in, and then you start noticing them And then it's like, oh, it's like, look at it, all this stuff is just showing up. It's like, well, it was always there for you,
Yeah.
right? But you just had to tune your awareness into it. And so, I mean, you guys are, sitting here like going on this this journey is, a representation of like what happens when you do that.
Yeah, and really all it is it's just for lack of better, it's our marketing plan. Our marketing plan, it's going to be a marketing vehicle. It's going to be our office. It's going to be everything. We have Think Tank, which is our main company, and then we just have different little areas and departments of projects that we want to work on. We have certain staff that help us with those, and away we go.
Yeah, and what are you guys doing at Think Tank? Because I don't even know anything about that.
Yeah, so Think Tank is mostly a leadership program. That's where I'm doing my leadership, the human side of business.
Yep.
Much like we've discussed on other ideas and concepts. Think Tank is just the parent company of everything.
Okay.
Is really all it is. So, and from there, we're able to blend in the holistic side, and I can route people from that site over to her. And that's really all we're doing.
Well, especially with the Ascend Wellness, I have an online virtual clinic right on the website, right? So with like foundational blueprints and, having these personalized wellness plans specific, right? But we can do that for entire corporations. We can do that for companies. We can do that for individuals, right? So some of the workshops that we give in the leadership seminars and workshops and courses is a foundation in wellness and nutrition and fitness, right? Because quite honestly, I mean, with Ascend, it's about the triad of health, mind, body, and spirit, right? So the mind is Think Tank and the leadership. The body is Ascend, right? What you put into your body and what you do with your body. And the spirit is the love doula with the spiritual weddings.
I love that. I mean, that sounds like
put a bow on that wrapped it up.
That was a good way to, I think it was
so that's how it all fits together.
Right. And I think sometimes like that's what people and especially in business, even in anything that you want to do, it's like it's easy. There's so much opportunity. It's easy to end up kind of going after everything. And so like I think the grand intention is to spread the message, right? And so why don't we get into that a little bit more about like the message, because I'm interested in like especially the love doula, right, is the spirituality in weddings, right? And so it's like I think that's like super important, because I think so many people get like wrapped up in religions, and there's I think one of the most damage that was ever done, or maybe it was good, I don't know, was when Bill Maher did that documentary Religionless. Do you remember that? And he basically said all religion is terrible, and I do agree that there are issues in religion, especially with respect to like guilt and that kind of thing. And for me, spirituality was the stepping out of the limitations in religion and seeing what the actual message was, right? And so I still think there's like great messages within religion, but people get so defensive about religion, and they get closed off, and then they miss the main messages that are like just like really the foundations of like life.
Absolutely.
We just discussed this the other day. Society is built basically around the 10 Commandments. Don't go rip your neighbor off. Don't kill people. Don't whatever. But the religion is a darker side of thing. But what people are losing sight of is faith. Whether you have faith in God, whether you have faith in Muhammad, whether you have faith in spirituality and source, whatever it is, the one thing that everybody's missing is that everybody believes in something. It might not be the same thing, but the connection we all have is the fact that we believe in a higher power. Somewhere there's a higher energy. Somewhere. So people really shouldn't knock down other beliefs or faiths. I think it's the corruption that's amongst religion, that is the issue. But I believe faith, and as far as spirituality, I'm going to let her take it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that over the years, over centuries, religion was really based on the, man-imposed dogma, right? The rules in order to keep people subdued. Right? Generally speaking, you have some religions that are a little bit more focused on that, and some religions, like for example Buddhism, that is not. It's a lot freer, right? So you almost have to take a look at, well, what is the dogma, the rules, and what is the spirit behind it, right? And I think, just like Ian said, it's the very base of it, of the connecting value is is love, and it's gratitude, and it's forgiveness, right? And again, there's your triad, right?
Yeah.
We're all about threes. So without any of those, you don't have, it's really hard to believe in anything. It's hard to believe in yourself if you don't love yourself, if you don't have gratitude and thank yourself for things, if you don't have forgiveness for yourself. And that is the very primary focus. You need to focus on yourself first before you can start thinking about other people, right?
Yeah, and I think that is a part of where people miss, is that there has to be a little bit of a selfishness when you first start off this spiritual journey, because by looking inward is where you're going to resolve, and then once you kind of resolve that stuff, then you naturally, as a consequence of healing from within, want to give, want to give back, essentially, right? And you realize that it's necessary to do the inner healing before you can try to go out and heal others. Now, but there is a caveat to that, which is that sometimes in healing others, you heal yourself as well.
Absolutely. And I always say quite often is it's okay to be selfish until you're able to be selfless.
Yeah.
And there's a huge thing there people miss. And I think I've been guilty of it a large portion of my life, where I was always out there willing, and I was accessible, and I was always helping other people, and that's great. But what I missed out on was helping myself. And in the last, probably since I'm 54 now, so for just about a year prior to us getting together, I started to realize, and I started to forgive, and I started to recognize, and we had that talk about my sister, how I envisioned things with my sister, and it opened up my mind after not drinking. And I just think it's something that a lot of people get caught up in, and it helped me. She put me on the right track. Really, she did. She put me on the right track. We put laser focus into our own personal life, and it's allowed us to focus on our immediate circle, which then ripples out from them. Because if you can affect change in the people closest to you and bring them some awareness and clarity, then they're going to pass that on to their next little circle that they have, and so on and so on. But a lot of people get so caught up in trying to fix things that they're out of your hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can be aware of it, but they're out of your hands.
I think what a lot of people don't realize too, and some people do, is that our body is energy, right? We emanate a frequency. And like an example of that is like anytime, if you go to a party, you are immediately drawn or attracted to a certain type of person, maybe a particular person, because they have this amazing energy. Or somebody walks into the room and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't like that person. I have no idea why, but you could feel their energy, right? So that's a tangible thing, right? When you start working on yourself and you start really healing and developing your own self-awareness, and you will literally raise your own frequency to start being that person that people are drawn to, right? And you're emanating that energy outwards. The more you do that, the more you focus on yourself, the more that energy spreads out wider, right? So then anyone who's within that radius, 2, 3, 10 meters around you can feel it, tangibly feel it, I mean, we've been told at parties that people see that and notice that and feel that when we walk into a room together, but that is an impetus for change for others. They feel that and they get a spark of motivation or that goodness, that positivity. And then, hopefully they will move on and do something great with it.
Yeah, the tide raises all boats, right? And
Yes.
so it's like, and I think people get wrapped up in like, a lot of people come to me, and these are usually people that don't sign with me, is they come to me and they say, my life is terrible because of all of these other people, and they won't change and everything. And I bring them back and say, like, listen, it's like you can't work on other people in our sessions together. Like, we can only work on you. Right. And so that taking of ownership, right, is such a critical step when it comes to spiritual growth. And when you do finally realize that you are the source of all of your suffering, yes. when you finally come to that critical, I call it radical responsibility, when you finally come to that, as you begin to shift, the people that you wanted to change in order to make you feel some sort of way end up changing, right? And because they're picking up on that energy that you're talking about, it's like, if I need something from you, you're going to feel that need, and naturally, as a consequence, are going to be repelled by it, right? But if I come here and I don't want anything from you guys, right? It's like everything softens, right? And then I'm more willing to help because you're not looking to get anything from me. And this is what's happening in like relationships. Like, I need my husband to, give me more love. Yeah. Well, it's like, if you need your husband to give you love, that means that you don't have love from within, right? And so you're looking for it out there. And so people get a lot of pushback from that and be like, it's like, oh no, they need to change. And really it gets back to that selfishness that we're talking about. It's like everything comes back to you. And once you solve, then you get to a place kind of like where you guys are, which is like looking to help. And then that really becomes like this place of power where you get supported by like the universe, right? By God, whatever it is for you. And so when you step into that support, it's like everything begins to flow, right? And so one of the things I struggled with is like, as things begin to flow, there's like a level of deservingness that you have to start, working on, because if things start coming too easily, especially as like a man who's like been like programmed, like you have to work hard and sacrifice and all this stuff to get, right? Well, when stuff starts flowing and you don't feel like you're working as hard, there's a sense of like essentially like self-sabotaging so that you start working hard again, And so that's one of the things I've been working on recently, is like to allow that flow and that abundance to come in without having to sabotage, so I can show the world that I'm essentially I'm worthy of the success that I'm having, kind of thing.
And that's a great point, because that's pretty much what we've been experiencing recently. And we discussed it, how our life when we were younger, everything we did was about money. Everything's money. I'm going to go do that because I'm going to make money. The purpose that we're doing right now, legit, like, I never worry about monies. We can't go make money. We can always make money. We're not sitting in a financial hole. We're fine. But to have the ability and the freedom to go out and do different events and know that I'm basically going to donate tens of thousands of dollars from these specific events we're going to do quarterly, and not worry about what we're going to make off of them, it's a freedom that I've never experienced.
Liberating
at this level. It really is. I know that the money's going to be there. I know that we're going to maintain. Our cost of living is dropping. Let's just face it. There's just, life is not, our purpose is not about money anymore. And it's we obviously need money to live, but it's not the driving force by any means.
And again, too, like, where your thoughts go, your energy goes, right? Where your energy goes, that's what manifests, right? So if you're constantly worried and thinking about money, then that's where your energy goes, into that negative aspect of thought about money. So you're going to be in a lack. That's what manifests. So when you don't focus on that, but you focus on the goals and ideals and the goodness that's going to come out of, everything that we're going to do, it just naturally happens. Things just come.
Yeah, but I think the thing that people miss with respect to that is that it requires like a very, very deep state of surrender. To me, surrender is like just a complete and utter trust that it's all going to work out. And people have a lot of trouble with that, right? And because the ego, the mind wants to control. And so, if what you hold in mind tends to manifest. And so I guess like a big part of what I do is help people become aware of what they're holding in mind. And they may think, for example, that holding in mind that they want to be rich is a good thing, right? But by holding in mind that you want to be rich, what you're telling yourself repetitively over and over that you're not. And then that's exactly what will show up into your life, right? And so I think you could kind of see how like that whole idea gets a little bit, people get like wrapped up in what's happening in their mind and trying to change it, but understanding exactly how the mind works. And I think the real simple way to do that is like whatever you're thinking about most will show up in your life, right? And so this learning how to decipher a little bit of what you're holding in mind most is critical. But if you're holding in mind most that you need more money, that means you're in a state of lack.
I think there's another caveat to that also. With think tank leadership, we talk about growth mindset, right? So self-reflection and self-healing obviously is about growing yourself. All of a sudden your mindset starts to change, right? Well, the way to do that is to look at any given thing that happens in your life. If it's something that's, like a negative thing that happened, or you're in a particular situation that you don't like, what can you learn from it? Every single situation you learn from, right? If you're choosing not to learn from a situation, you're bound to repeat that situation in a higher degree over and over again until you learn it, right? So once you learn it and accept it, you're not going to see that anymore. So all of a sudden, you have growth from accepting, taking accountability and responsibility, and forgiveness, right? All of a sudden now you're growing, you're shifting. What's the next lesson? Now what's the next lesson? Once you go through those lessons, and that's even like looking back at your life and looking back at, everything that you've done. And it's self-reflection. Maybe you're journaling, you can journal, or you can talk to somebody or whatever it is. But look back on your life, look back on the things that you're doing now. What can you learn from every single situation? Once you make those realizations, you grow. And then you don't have as difficult of a time in surrendering.
Yeah. I think surrender comes later. I think the beginning phases of spiritual growth have to start with like, why am I the way I am? Why does my life suck so bad? Why do I keep experiencing the same problem over and over again? And once you start asking that question, you get into that inquisition, and then now you can start creating awareness around like, okay, what needs to be undone so I can break this cycle. The good news is that if you're listening to this and you think it's all BS, it's like eventually you're going to be forced to face it, right?
Yes.
And so like the idea I think of what you guys do and what I do is to start to learn how to listen to those subtle nudges of the universe of God. Like I always kind of say, it's like, God is like kind of just always nudging you along towards thy will, right? Which is the highest good for all. And so if you don't listen, those nudges will become bigger, and then eventually, if you don't listen long enough, then you get pushed right to the ground, and that's when people finally wake up. So if you're listening to this and you're like, "This is all bullshit," then that's fine, because eventually you're going to get pushed to the ground, and then you'll have to do some awareness around why you just got pushed to the ground, essentially.
Right, and we live in a society of blame.
Yeah.
And the one thing that when we speak of surrender and we speak of ego, the one thing that set me straight was recognizing that everything that occurs to my life is my fault. And I say fault, people think fault's a rough word, but I take complete responsibility. There was a decision or an indecision that occurred that resulted in an outcome. And I think a lot of people don't want to accept a bad outcome as their own. They'll accept all the good outcomes, but they don't want to accept the challenging outcomes and grow from that. They want to try to pawn it off on other people. And that was something that really helped me. I really don't get, if something goes sideways, it was something I did. We look back and we just reevaluate it. And that's how you learn, and that's how you grow.
Yeah, definitely. We always, like when we do podcasts, we're always talking about all the good, but like, what are some of the things that you guys are struggling with? Like what are the awarenesses that you're working through? I just had this. I just really recently had this awareness that, like not calling it like it is, not like speaking my truth, beating around the bush, all that stuff is like has been like my greatest limitation. And so I've been like trying to like just step into that, and even though it's uncomfortable, because when you talk about all this stuff on podcasts and in interviews, it all seems so fluffy and light, but actually when that shit shows up, it's like heavy, and so I've just been stepping into like, hey, I gotta just call things like it is, and if people don't like me for it, I'm kind of going through it on Instagram right now. 1,000 negative comments that tell me to get out of Canada. And I was like, wow, it's like I asked to be free of this thing, and literally like it was like just thrust upon me. And so that's what I'd be interested in, is like, what are you guys working on now with respect to new awarenesses?
Myself, it's ironic that you're saying this because it has just occurred. It hit me on top of the head. For the last few years, I've been living inside a box that everybody thought that you should be in, and you can't speak out, you can't speak your truth, you can't be who you are, because you'll automatically be attacked. There's been a shift recently, and the shift is happening, and the culture of outrage and all that, I feel, is dying. People are tired of it, and I could still be respectful, informative, calm, but I can be direct. And I literally just released a video this morning on social media called Unshakable.
Oh, nice.
And I laid it out, and I did it very peacefully, very calm. But if you don't, and really what that's coming from is people quietly messaging me on Messenger to complain and talk about how I'm speaking about them when it's not even directed at them.
Yeah.
And that really is more of a reflection of their mindset than my intended message. And honestly, like the freedom that I have in the last week, knowing that I'm in that state where I can speak educated, I can inform people, I can help people, but I can have a level of awareness and consciousness, but still have a mindset of a warrior, is something that I'm feeling really comfortable in the seat that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
It's liberating. It is.
It is, yeah. It's liberating, and then at the same time, maybe at some points it's like terrifying. But once you get through the terror, then it's like, even as I was getting like, I released some videos about Canada joining the U.S. and the whole idea was about learning how to step out of the emotion. This whole thing. Let's just take a look at this. But people are like attacking me, and so it's like I recognized the second I started getting attacked where I went, and it was all fear. It's like, oh, these people are gonna Google review me. They're gonna find where I live. They're gonna do this and Hawkins, who's kind of like what I would say would be my mentor, is like the guy that I've studied most of his work on, and it's like he said, like, avoid evil at all cost, right? And it's because it is true that there are people out there that will they literally will find out where you live and maybe attack you, see you on the street, do whatever, and I've just been aware of that fear in me. Now here's the thing, the recognition that fear is what was driving me has been what's allowing me to step out of this thing, because like now I'm like I'm not going to actively go out and try and like poke the bear of these angry people. I don't want to change their minds. They'll come around when they need to come around, right? But I'm not going to not speak my truth, right? And so I'm not going to let that fear rule my life anymore. And so it's kind of like a standing in it all. It was like been like it's been freeing, but at the same time, there's been a little bit scary to actually say, oh, look at all this shit that I have been avoiding. And, it's wild to me. And I'm sure you guys experience this too. It's that, you can do this work for so long, and then all of a sudden you have a realization that feels like a fucking leap. Like, how did I miss this for so long? I had Dan Crosby on my podcast last week, and I was just comparing myself to him the whole entire time, right? Like not like out of like poor me, why do I suck, and he's great, but it's like, what's different about you? These guys built this like huge to me, and the one thing he says is like I fucking call people out on their shit. I'm like, fuck, I don't do that, right? And so like that was the realization for me, and I'm guessing you're having the same kind of awareness.
And I just deal with people like that differently now. I used to be argumentative to try to drive my point home, and debating. I don't want to be argumentative. I'll debate anybody until I'm blue in the face. Not anymore. I really listen, man. I respect your opinion. It's varying. It's not mine, and that's okay.
Yes.
And not everybody has to get or understand what our message is. That's okay as well. So I think the thing that people need, so many people argue and fight for, is validation. And I don't want to subscribe to that any longer.
And there's like a needing to be right that happens there too. It's like it's like someone comes back at you and you feel the need to show them that you're right, and maybe even justify to them why you have this point of view so they don't hate you or whatever. But it's like I'm just like stepping out of all that. It's like I just have faith that everyone will find their own way, and if my message resonates with them, great. If it doesn't and they hate me for it, I can handle that too, right? Whereas before there was an unconscious I couldn't handle it, right? And now I've just been like thrust into it, and so so I'm guessing that, Ian, for you, that's the same thing that you're going through now. And what about you, Edyta? Like what's like one of your things that has been like really a sticky point for you in your life?
Well, quite honestly, I mean, it's been when I got injured on the job, for example, I just didn't even know where I stood in terms of, my life and my mission and my, me. I had no idea who I was anymore, because I always saw myself as my career. Like, I'm a military person. I'm a firefighter.
Right.
Like, that's who I was. But that is not the core of who I am. And I think after that, like, it took me almost a year of literally doing nothing and just doing therapy and redesigning the entire backyard and doing like an entire homestead backyard, And as I am building that, grounding and just listening to myself and having conversations with myself, literally, and getting these realizations that, you know, how arrogant are you to think that those things, those careers were the best things that you've ever done. You know, the most important things about you. The most important thing about you is what you're doing now. And I realized that, you know, being like a wonderful caretaker and wife, which I don't think I've ever focused on in the past. So, you know, I've been divorced and, you know, enabling, and likely I did a lot of bad, you know, made my mistakes as well. This is the first time that I've really focused on, you know, my partner, you know, and I'm a mom and I'm a partner. Soon as that brought a sense of peace, really peace to myself, which then all of a sudden, now that I'm like, now I'm at peace and I'm not like no anxiety, no more scrambling. All of a sudden I just start getting more what we call like downloads, you know, like, okay, here's some more realizations for you. Here's some more. And when, you know, I started again doing wellness programs for just friends and family. And when I did one for Ian's daughter, it was just this huge comprehensive plan to, you know, and Ian's like, you know, thank you for doing that. I said, yeah, I really love doing that. He says, oh yeah, no problem, thank you. I'm like, no. You don't understand. I love doing that, you know, and that's when I decided to become a natural therapist, right, and to build that portion of me. So I spent quite a bit of time on that. So a lot of it was forgiving myself, getting out of the anxiety, and just surrendering to the force, the source, God. You know, what's my mission? Where do I need to be?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, all of our problems would be solved if we just learned how to connect to what God wanted from us and followed that. Yeah. But you know, the ego has other ideas. We have to check all the boxes: wealth, relationships, partners, all that stuff, vacationing, and then we'll do God's work. But it's like the reverse is true. If you just ask God, you know, what is it you want from me? Yeah. You know, and then you actually go do that thing, life will be really, really easy. But one of the things that you're touching on there was like a sense of worth. And I was literally just on a call with a client, and she was talking about like how her sense of worth, you know, like, and it creates a lot of anxiety, is all tied to her ability to earn income. Right. And so she's like all her whole entire life has been around like earning income. And if she's not earning income, she doesn't feel worthy. And if the project that she's working on doesn't make money, then she's going to feel like a failure and all of this. And it was like, there was this moment, I think, for her and for me on that call where I was like you're just so much more than just an income, you know. And but to her, she was completely clueless. Like but she woke up in that call, but it's like she was like recognizing that her whole entire value had been placed on this identity as a breadwinner, you know, as an income earner. But I'm like, but you're a mother, you're a partner, you're a daughter, you're a you know, you're all of these other things, and it's like this is just one, but if that one thing goes away, you get completely fucked up essentially, right? And it's like that's like the pride goeth before the fall. So if all of your worth is connected to your wealth, and the wealth goes away, you know, you're going to fall all the way back down to shame, right? And so just to realize that, like it was almost sad, you know. I think there was a deep sadness, you know, for her in that moment, to recognize that she had, you know, spent her whole life clinging to this need to find worth in wealth, you know, and in the creation of wealth, you know, or worth in the identity of a job like a firefighter or whatever that may be, and then to recognize like, oh wow, I'm so much more than that. And so there's a sadness underneath it, but it's also empowering. It's kind of the same feeling I had when I took like radical responsibility. It was like there was like this sadness of like, oh my God, like I fucked my life up for this long by blaming other people. Like I've given everyone else my power, and I'm like, what have I done? And that was like the heaviness, but then it was empowering at the same time, because now I was like, hey, no one out there has control over me anymore. And so
absolutely,
well, we live in a society where we live in a fear-based society. You know, everybody's afraid of not having enough, they don't have enough money, they don't have enough this. And what people do is they equate happiness to achieving those things. But then when they never achieve it, they don't ever achieve happiness.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, and if people realize that if they just are happy and accepting and open to how good their life is and how good it can be, stop comparing it to other people. But if I get that big house, I'll be happy. No, I got to get a Ferrari. Nope, I got to get this, whatever it is. And everybody get what you want that makes you. But I think that people keep the goalpost keeps moving.
Of course.
And they never achieve it.
Yeah.
And basically what we've been able to do is just flip that. And I don't concern myself about it's going to happen. It's all going to happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So.
And I think the sad part is that we've been programmed. I mean, we've been programmed by society, by what we watch on TV, you know, by what we're told, you know, by government, our families, because, you know, they grow up thinking a certain way because that's what they've been taught, and then they teach, and then they teach, and then they teach that everything, this is all conditioning. It's all, you know, programming that just no longer works. And perhaps it worked back in the, you know, 50s, 60s, and 70s, maybe, you know, but it doesn't work anymore. You know, and there's a big shift with people. There's a big shift in consciousness going on, and there's so much realization and so much learning going on by individuals about themselves, you know, that we're just not subscribing to what we're told anymore.
Yeah,
you know?
I think more and more people are waking up to this realization that I will be happy when is a fucking myth.
It is.
You know, it's like
and they achieve that, and then they're still not happy.
Of course, right? And then they're like, oh, well, now I need to get to this next thing. And so, I mean, you guys sound the same thing that I did is without even realizing what I was doing, you know, I thought money would bring me happiness. And so without realizing, because I was getting exposed to the work of Dr. David Hawkins and I had my mentor kind of guiding me down this path, I was uncovering why I wasn't happy now. And so as I started to heal from all of that stuff that I was holding on to, I started becoming happy. So now I had become the state that I thought money would get me.
Right.
And then the money came. Right. And so like that's it in a nutshell is solve for why you're unhappy from within and don't look to get it from out there because it will never work.
Yeah.
There is no amount of adding, you know, that is ever going to solve for anything that's going on inside. It's all about looking within and letting go of what is blocking our true state of consciousness, which is actually happiness and love and joy and like super high states of consciousness. It's already within all of us. It's who we all really actually are. But we've just put up a bunch of barriers and protections against it, which is, it's like super sad, you know, in some ways, but also super liberating that we have the knowledge that we can unlock it. Right.
Yeah.
So,
And it's ironic to try to speak to people about it that just haven't, that switch hasn't flipped.
Yeah.
No. You know, and they look at you sideways or they,
of course.
They don't even understand what consciousness and self-awareness is. So it's better to detract or call people crazy or whatever it is than it is to actually look in the mirror and look inside.
Yeah, I mean, this work. I released a video earlier. It's like not for the faint of heart because it's like you actually have to face the thing that you've been avoiding your whole entire life through your unconsciousness. And so when you wake up, now you're like, oh, now you're aware. Yeah. And I've had some clients over the day say, I was happier before, and I point out, no, you weren't. But now they have awareness that they have to face all of this shit, right? And so that can feel heavy at times, but it is the process. I mean, it sounds like the message you guys are kind of spreading, you know. So. How do people follow this thing? Like, are you guys at that point where people could go and follow the journey?
Yeah, we've got the WanderWell Tour Facebook page, and they're going to be able to follow there. We've connected. We're going to be launching a podcast where we're going to be interviewing people out on the road.
Oh, I love that.
There's events that we're doing, as you know, that are going to involve also celebrities or professional athletes every quarter. We plan on inviting them onto our podcast, inviting unique people that we can speak to out on the road. And the website, we should have a website up and running probably before we leave. That's for sure. It's already built out, and we're just getting it tweaked and everything. So I'm debating whether to do the YouTube channel like you and just maybe do the podcast, because I know that that's a ton of, but I think social media and our pages as well as our website is going to be give people the opportunity to follow along, understand where we're at, where we're going, what events we'll be at. I mean, we speak about the happiness and everything. I get to go watch 6 couples get married on the most important day of their life, as she does 6 pop-up weddings
Yeah,
in a row.
right.
You know,
By a
we're about to
waterfall
change
or on a
12
cliff,
people's
or, you know.
lives.
Yeah.
And I get to watch that and take that in and help her and be a part of that. And that alone, I would hop on this highway with her just to do that.
Yeah,
it
right.
doesn't even have to be about my leadership and my own message.
Yeah, I love it.
So, but yeah, we're really looking forward to this. This is going to be a good time, and we're getting incredible response across the country. It's ironic. I mean, the further away we get from where we're at, the more response and the more happy and
the more support,
receptive and
right.
and welcoming people are, because it is a unique thing that we're doing.
Yeah, right.
And we're gaining a lot of traction with it, and I expect it to only grow from there.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to watch along the journey, and thanks for taking the time. It's been good getting to know you guys more, and we'll be following along for sure.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Right on.
Thanks,
guys.